Part 2 of Season 2 of Arcane just dropped, so let's talk about the crazy reveals that happen and what will happen in the final 3 episodes coming out next week, for which we got a little preview. Previously, Act 1 of the season had Vi and Jinx continuing to fall apart, with Vi also falling away from Caitlyn after seeming to finally confirm the romantic feelings for each other with a kiss. Act 2, however, had the three eventually all coming together again, with Jinx and Vi being reunited early on because of the revelation that Vander is not dead. Vander had seemingly died in Season 1 of Arcane when we saw him turning into a horrible monster, but we now know that he is alive, and because of this monstrous transformation, he's not always in control of himself. With that in mind, Jinx realizes that she needs the help of Vi to figure out what to do with Vander. Vi and Jinx end up bringing Vander to Victor, who has had a Jesus-like experience going to the magical arcane that powers the Hex Tech, and who now heals people. Vander, likewise, can be treated by Victor and his magic, allowing his human side to take control more, but all this goes haywire when Jace returns from the magical realm with the intent to kill Victor. This causes a massive die-off of the people that Victor was basically keeping alive, and the reversal of all the effects to heal and help others, leading to Vander in particular losing control to his monster self. This led to him going on a wild rampage and being attacked by ImpSona and her people, before Isha decides to sacrifice herself to end the suffering in that moment. The episode ends with us seeing a gear rolling away, a gear that on one side is perfect and clean, and on the other side corrupted, with the last line we hear coming from Victor, with him saying, "That which inspires us to our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil." This is the big theme of the show, how loving someone inspires the characters to be their greatest selves, but ultimately they end up creating their greatest evils. This started with Powder, who aspired to be helpful to Vi in a world where her and others like her were suffering. She just ended up hurting the people closest to her, however, over and over again, and each time she clings to a new person who just ends up suffering or even dying as well. After already losing Vander once in Season 1, Jinx managed to get him back in his monster form, as well as a potential bond with her sister, and even this new friend Isha who looked up to her. Once again, however, Powder has lost the new person she learned to care about, Isha, while also losing Vander yet again, with Isha being somewhat responsible for that. Isha's sacrifice seemed to be to put an end to Vander's suffering and the battle that was slowly killing him, preventing him as well from being turned into a killing machine for ImpSona, but Jinx is going to be conflicted about it one way or another. She didn't want Isha to sacrifice herself, and she didn't want to lose Isha in addition to Vander, and as helpless as the moment seemed, Jinx probably knows that this was a careless, childlike thing to do, which makes sense because Isha is a child with only Jinx as a role model. Isha's desires to help and be like Jinx aren't based on the reality of Jinx, but on what little Isha understands of her as a sort of celebrity icon who happened to let Isha tag along with her for things she's too young and underdeveloped to understand. It's a hard loss to take, and at the end of the day, it reinforces the idea in Jinx's mind that her name is well chosen, as she has lost every person who she has tried to help in one way or another, with Vi really only escaping death so far, at least in Jinx's eyes, because they separated themselves from each other instead. This episode also had Caitlyn beginning to realize the wrongs ImpSona was imposing, with a last-minute attempt to help Vi and the others, and the preview for the final act promising to follow up on that. Take a quick listen to this clip here.
How long were you sidled up with that self-serving war pig? She oinked poison in your ear and you just ate it.
While I'm sure Vi will be happy to have Kate on her side by the end of the next 3 episodes, the trailer has her lashing out at Kate for falling for ImpSona's manipulations. Caitlyn screams back at Vi saying that she knows, and it's a beautifully acted moment just in the preview alone, and I can't wait to see the full performance for the scene, but already it looks like Vi isn't done with her emo phase, and that the two are gonna need to work on some things before they can come back together and tackle the problem for the finale. We have other scenes of Caitlyn talking about how Victor seems to be at the center of all of this, and it makes sense that his story isn't over, with him being so connected to the Arcane, and the show itself being called Arcane to distinguish it from League of Legends, or any future series that might have a different focus and thus a different title. I'm planning to have a deeper dive into the lore with its real-life inspirations once we see the final outcome in the next act, but he is undoubtedly gonna play a role even after seemingly dying, and I doubt he's gone for good. The final 3 episodes will undoubtedly build up to a final confrontation between Piltover and Zahn, with Vi and Caitlyn now fighting on something of both of their sides in order to take care of the real threat, ImpSona, but the real conflict is gonna be over Jinx. It would be too easy for Jinx to just join them against their rightful next enemy and actually try to establish order in the world, and instead it seems obvious that Jinx is going to continue having a breakdown and spiral out of control to do something horrible. She probably won't be very logical about it, even compared to previous stunts she's pulled, and instead, she'll probably just be doubling down on the idea that she is just cursed, with the only thing left for someone as cursed as her to do being to destroy everything she can. In the teaser, Vi can be heard asking Jinx to choose to use her explosives and abilities for good, but I have to imagine, or at the very least hope, that Jinx will instead be pushing her rabid fans towards an all-out war that will just end up getting in the way of Vi and Caitlyn's more tactical plan to make a better world for everyone. I've heard that the show is its own canon, or that they have a shared canon in other cases, or even that the games don't technically have canon and are just a series of playable events from a world where these characters all come from but don't necessarily interact with each other. But for me, I think the best way to end this is to double down on the idea of Arcane as an origin story. While they could make their own canon that has something of a happier ending for Jinx and Vi, it would be more fun, I think, to end the story with Jinx once again ruining everything, this time so much on purpose that there is no real recourse for Vi and they have to remain separated. I think that Vi and Caitlyn will defeat Ambessa, of course, and that will lead to them being able to usher in a new age where Vi is comfortable being a full-fledged enforcer like in the games. Jinx, I believe, will not die, and perhaps only just be spared by Vi, who lets Jinx go out into the world so that Vi doesn't have to kill her. It would make a fun sense for the show to end where it started, really, with the end of its final act mirroring the end of its first act. Here, all the way back in episode 3 of season 1, we have Vi yelling at Jinx, disavowing her, giving her a name that would change her to the crazy terroristic villain that she would become. The whole show has been about trying to see if this relationship can be fixed or their issues resolved in some way, but the themes of the show thus far have been about the cyclical nature of these conflicts, with the balance of light and dark inevitably being thrown out when darkness begins to corrupt things entirely. Of course, they could always pull back at the last minute and reveal to us that the corruption is just part of the balance, that Jace has to kill Victor in order for him to be reborn, and that Jinx and Vi's relationship had to die in order for them to come back together and appreciate each other in a way they didn't before. But right now, even with some sort of happy ending about resurrection on the horizon, I can't help but feel like Jinx and Vi are just destined to not work things out, to continue on instead from the end of the series in a form similar to the games, which I have not played, but from what I understand, would still have them as antagonistic and opposed to each other. I don't see Jinx as being able to just come back from all the trauma that she's put on herself and be able to live a life with Vi. But honestly, I'm such a filthy casual and my opinion is pretty useless on this show. At least until we get to the finale next week and I can make one of our real-life mythology videos breaking down Victor's story. But what do you guys think? Are you a filthy casual, or do you know the League of Legends metaverse so well that you already know what's going to happen next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.